Speaker, the economic contribution that agriculture makes to rural areas has already been emphasised this afternoon, and it applies to Wales, and in particular Ceredigion, just as much as the other countries of the UK. Now, the structure of the Welsh agricultural industry is, at least for the time being, rooted in the family farm. In Wales, the average size of holdings is 48 hectares, significantly less than that of the UK's, and the industry's share of total employment in Wales is 3 times that of the UK average. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is important to note that as a result of this, agriculture is of economic importance, but it is also of cultural importance, sustaining the Welsh language and the fabric of rural life. Now, I do not intend to go into detail about what a new agricultural policy for Wales should look like, or how it should work, for such matters are rightly beyond the scope of this bill and will be determined in the Senedd in Cardiff. Now, while the policy decisions relating to the future of Welsh agriculture are devolved, the matter of their funding ultimately is not. And so it is on this that I shall concentrate my remarks this afternoon. Now, much has been said in this debate about the importance of direct payments, and in particular, ensuring the viability of the agricultural sector. The industry in Wales at present is heavily dependent on the support it receives through the CAP. In 2017, for example, payments represented 107% of the total income from farming. Compare this with some 68% in Northern Ireland and 52% in England. Therefore, any changes to the overall level of funding for UK agriculture will have a particular impact in Wales. And as farmers manage around 80% of land in Wales, ensuring their viability is essential if other outcomes of agricultural policy are to be realised.
Honourable friend, give way.
I shall.
I'm sure my honourable friend would agree with me that it's not enough for ministers to wax lyrical about farmers being the stewards of the uplands. They must also recognise that in Wales, a living countryside as we know it is dependent on farmers being able to be certain of a living wage in future.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for an intervention with which I wholeheartedly agree. Now, on that point, the UK Government has committed to guarantee current levels of funding until 2022. But it is unclear how future levels will be decided or how funding will be allocated across the 4 countries of the UK. The Minister for Farming may recall a discussion at the session of the Welsh Affairs Select Committee some months ago, where these are questions of not only how the cake will be shared, but also how big the cake will be in the first place. Now, giving as much clarity and stability to the industry must be a priority, and any future funding framework should, I believe, be based on a 7-year cycle. Now, ministers have suggested that decisions about future levels of funding will be taken by the UK Government and subject to the Treasury's budgetary cycle and comprehensive spending review. This would not afford the industry the same degree of certainty as the present multi-annual financial framework. Now, I do appreciate that ministers are hesitant to make unilateral funding decisions that would bind successive governments. But if they were to make such a framework subject to the consent of all 4 countries of the UK, by means perhaps of a dedicated intergovernmental body, they would be at greater liberty, I believe, to make such commitments, to maintain the level of funding for agriculture in the UK and deliver the support and stability the industry deserves. Such an approach would also assist with the inevitable headaches that will emerge over the way in which any funding is allocated across the UK. Now, in fairness, the Secretary of State and the Minister of Farming have both previously confirmed that the Barnett formula will not be used to determine allocations. That this is to be welcomed, particularly in Wales. But the question remains as to how these allocations will be decided. The Secretary of State referred to earlier in the debate about an imminent review of this process. I'll stay because time is against me. What role will the devolved governments play in this process? And looking to the future, how will future disputes be resolved? It is only if financial frameworks are developed jointly by all 4 countries that they will be sustainable and reflect the needs of each. The Welsh and the UK governments believe policy areas can be managed through non-legislative intergovernmental coordination, but I fear that this approach is unrealistic when it comes to questions of funding. I would also argue that an intergovernmental body would be necessary to address any market distortions that may arise from policy divergence, which is not unlikely when we consider that in terms of direct payments, for example, divergence looks possible between Scotland and Northern Ireland on the one hand and England and Wales on the other. Each nation should decide on their own agricultural policy, but an intergovernmental body is required to address any issues which cause an imbalance in a market or unfairly disadvantage one country over another. The existing structures are not fit for this purpose. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will conclude just by reiterating the need for any future financial frameworks to be agreed, built and maintained in cooperation between the four nations. And so perhaps, when replying to the debate, the Secretary of State or the Minister could assure farmers that such decisions will be made on a shared governance basis and that the unique characteristics of the industries in each country are supported accordingly. For at present, I'm afraid, such assurance is lacking.
Here, here. Now.